Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Obviously, we've been talking about the Warzone meta a lot lately, and something that is always a predominant theme in every single one of those videos is the Cold War weapons, whereas Modern Warfare weapons just simply aren't a huge factor, or at least they haven't been a huge factor as of lately. However, we've seen a lot of weapon tuning in the past couple of weeks. We saw the whole mid-season update. We also had the bigger weapon tuning update and weapon change update from a couple of days back last week. And now there's actually a handful of Modern Warfare weapons that I wanted to focus on today, specifically when it comes to the ranged meta, that are definitely very competitive. Like, to a certain extent, the Modern Warfare meta is kind of back in a way. So as we go through everything today, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, this is the place to be for everything going on in COD. News, intel, updates, loadouts, tips. It is all right here every single day. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. All right, so we are back here on True Game Data as always. Big shout out to Tony for all the information he provides for everyone to look at on the site. The link to the site and his channel will be down in the description below. But we got a lot of weapons here, a lot of the main meta weapons when it comes to range. We're talking the C58, the Farah, the Stoner, the EM2, the Krig, the Cold War AK, and a handful of Modern Warfare weapons, the Amax, the PKM, and the M4. Because to me, those are three that really stand out that I think truly are a part of the meta as it stands. So we're looking at the chest shot TTK right now. Obviously, there's a lot of lines here and a lot of colors. The main ones we want to look at here are obviously the orange line for the Amax, the hot pink for the PKM, and then also like the dark green for the M4A1. And to the chest, you can see the PKM actually kind of stands out. Like, it's the second best TTK up through 50 meters, which is quite a few fights. It does drop off after that. Then it's the fourth best behind the Cold War AK, the Farah, and then also the EM2. But hey, that's still pretty impressive just to the chest shots. You look at the M4, it's kind of hard to see in here because it's that dark green color, but it's actually right neck and neck with a lot of the main weapons. The C58, it's actually better than a couple of weapons as well, up through about 40 meters. It does drop off, but it's still like a middle of the pack to the chest. The Amax also semi-decent up through about 36 meters. It does unfortunately drop off, but that's just one part of the body. You can see all three of those main Modern Warfare weapons are pretty competitive across all ranges. Now, if we go ahead and look at headshots, the story is actually pretty interesting. The Amax, the orange line here, is actually the best through 36 meters, which is pretty impressive. The Cold War AK is shortly behind that, but the Amax is beating out the AK in some of those closer range fights. Then once it drops off, it's again a middle of the pack weapon. You look at the PKM, the hot pink one, while it's not great right at like the start, over range it becomes the third best because it has no damage drop off to the head. You look at the M4, it's in here. It's the fourth best up through 44 meters. Unfortunately, does drop off a bit towards the end there, but again, incredibly competitive. It is very close between all these. These are minuscule differences in TTK when you're landing headshots. We can go ahead, we can look at the next shots. Again, you're going to see the Amax in first, which I think is pretty surprising. And even after its drop off, it's actually the second best only to the EM2, which is a lot more difficult to use in my opinion. You look at the M4, the dark green line, it's up here. Like, honestly, the M4 isn't super great to the neck. That's like its sort of weak point, but every gun's going to have one of those, as you'll see. The hot pink, the PKM, middle of the pack, nothing too crazy in this case, but the Amax really stands out specifically to the neck. The same argument stands. These three MW weapons that we're looking at are very competitive. Let's look at the stomach. What's standing out here? You got the Amax, middle of the pack up close. Unfortunately, it does drop off a bit. The PKM, second best through 51 meters, then becomes the third best after that. You look at the dark green line, it's sort of mixed in here, 44 meters. It's right in there neck and neck with everything. Then suddenly, it's going to be the fourth best overall range behind the EM2, the PKM, and the AK. And just saying, the M4 is pretty easy to use compared to those weapons, with the PKM, the M4 probably being the easiest out of all those. So, I mean, over range, sort of speaks for itself there. Then lastly, we can also look at the extremities. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. PKM is second best. M4 is in there as well. It's the same drop-offs to the stomach and the extremities here, but things like the Krig, not really even an option in any of these conversations, right? To any part of the body, it's really not all that impressive. The EM2 is in there, but it's going to have that annoying visual bounce that makes it hard to consistently land shots. Same deal with the AK over range, despite the recoil being adjusted. The Stoner is in here as well, which was just basically middle of the pack the entire time, as that sort of dark blue line, so that wasn't anything, you know, insanely broken or crazy. But everyone's always focused on the Cold War weapons, where we kind of got three sleepers right now. The Amax, totally competitive to many different parts of the body. Same deal with the PKM especially, which is incredibly powerful to the chest and to the head and whatnot. And the M4, while it's not like a #1 TTK, just beast, it is middle of the pack pretty much every single gunfight you're getting into, so you can't really go wrong with those. We can also look at our stats here. There's going to be some discrepancies. Obviously, the PKM and the Stoner are going to be a lot slower than all the main rifles, so that's kind of their own category here. The sprint to fire times, though, are even between both of those. PKM has a slightly better fire rate, slightly better ADS move speed, which is pretty impressive. You love to see that. And its bullet velocity is also a tad bit better than the Stoners as well. So the PKM, in my opinion, is honestly the better choice if you're an LMG fan. But of course, we have a bunch of rifles here. C58 Amax, Farah, EM2, Krig, M4, Cold War AK. You look at the ADS times, the Amax is, right in the center there, just slightly slower than the C58 and the Farah. A little bit faster than the EM2. The Krigs is pretty fast for what it's worth, but it's, a little bit faster than the M4. MW weapons are typically slower, not all that far behind the AK-47. The sprint to fire time on the Amax, exactly the same as all the other rifles. Same with attack sprint to fire time. The movement speed's right up there, 4.51 compared to 4.78, 4.67, 4.7, 4.81, 4.5 for the M4. So those are pretty much the same, 4.7. So it's slightly lower in some cases, but not by anything drastic that you'd be able to immediately feel in game. Its ADS movement speed is actually better, as is the M4A1s. Those are the two best in this entire category between all these weapons we're looking at. Then you look at the bullet velocities, and those are up there. I mean, the M4s is insane at 1200. It's actually the highest on this entire list. The Amax is on the lower side of things, but it's really not all that much worse than most of these rifles. So, I mean, they are sleeper weapons when it comes down to it. You don't see people running the M4 versus the Farah or the C58 or the AK. The Amax, despite being incredibly good, still just isn't a favorite all that much. But it really should be. Statistically, as we just saw, these weapons can still hold their own. The PKM, especially in the LMG category, and the AMAX and the M4 in the rifle category. You could even make arguments for some other weapons. Obviously, the CAR is still a top sniping choice. The MW MP5 is still an SMG choice that's towards the top. But specifically for range, there are some Modern Warfare meta weapons that are definitely in the whole general conversation here. I also wanted to go ahead and include my main recommended loadouts for these specific Modern Warfare weapons. Of course, for the M4, not much has changed here. It's been a very basic weapon really ever since Warzone launched. But the monolithic suppressor, the M16 barrel, that gives you the best range and control and velocity there. I also use the commando foregrip to help smooth out that control some. You could probably get away with dropping that and adding on a tac laser if you wanted some slightly better speed there, but honestly, commando is a pretty consistent attachment for that. I also got the 60-round mags on there, and of course, the VLK 3x optic. For the AMAX setup, we all know this one by now. It's pretty much a copy and paste of the MW setup for what it's worth. Longest barrel, monolithic suppressor. In this case, that'll be the Zodiac barrel. Again, going for commando foregrip, although for what it's worth, I actually really do like the tac laser over the commando foregrip in this case. It takes a bit more skill and patience to learn what the recoil is like without the commando foregrip on there, but for that snappiness on the ADS, I just really enjoy tac laser. It's honestly super fun. 45-round mags and VLK 3x optic yet again here. Super fun setup, and obviously, as we just saw, it's still a beast. Then for the PKM, we're going again, monolithic suppressor. I like to use the heavy barrel over the extended barrel. It's not the largest barrel, so it doesn't help you as much with the control and everything, but it's not going to weigh you down as much. And the extended barrel just feels very slow, and obviously MW weapons as is are already atrociously bad when it comes to mobility, so slowing them down even more, maybe not the best bet. So I go ahead and go for the heavy barrel on that. We got the snatch grip for better ADS and better control. I go for the Icon, the Stippy Grippy, although for what it's worth, you could always drop that, add on that tac laser. That might help more for some ranged fights. And again, we've got the VLK 3x optic. But all three of these weapons, as we saw, can compete. The Modern Warfare meta, to an extent, I would say is back. And that's going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on the video. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always stay up to date with everything going on in COD. News, intel, updates, loadouts, it is all right here. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.